Hello and welcome to Spurbs Herbs episode 105. Today we're going to be talking about Chinese herb Juhua, Chrysanthemi Flos, or Chrysanthemum Flower. Let's get into it. Today we're going to be looking at another single Chinese herb, Juhua, Chrysanthemi Flos, or Chrysanthemum Flower. This herb is in the Chinese medical subcategory of cool acrid herbs that release the exterior under the category of release the exterior herbs. It is helpful for certain types of colds and helps the liver and the eyes. This episode is pretty jam-packed, so we're going to focus on our herb of the day and look at something a little different in our next episode. Please stay tuned for another interesting episode. Before we get into that, I just want to remind you we have started an amazing special for our courses. If you use them for continuing education, professional development, or just for your own edification, we are offering 50 hours of courses for an unbelievable price. Normally this would cost $750. However, with the special code 50 CEUs, that's 50 CEUS, this is going to be only $325, which is only $650 per hour. That's less than half off. Plus, you can get a free signed copy of one of my books. Just pay for shipping and handling. That is a free copy of Integrative Pharmacology, combining modern pharmacology with integrative medicine, or Playing the Game, a step-by-step approach to accepting insurance as an acupuncturist. Just go to the webpage www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org/CEUS1, that's CEUS1. That's www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org/CEUS1 for this amazing deal. So let's get straight into Juhua, or Chrysanthemum Flower. We've got a lot to cover, so we're just going to get right into things. This is from the family Asteraceae. Its standard species is Chrysanthemum morifolium Rama. Remember, Rama is the biologist that first classified it. The medicinal part that we're talking about today is the flower. We're going to find that other parts of the plant are useful too, but today we're just concentrating on the flower. In English, Juhua literally means chrysanthemum flower. Other names for this are mum. Sometimes they will be called mums. Hungju, Baijuhua, Hung Juhua, Hung Juhua, so it's Huang Juhua and Hung Juhua. Jehua, in Japanese it's Kukuka, and in Korean, Kukwa. Again, I do not pronounce Korean or Japanese, so please forgive my any mispronunciations there at all. So let's talk about the Asteraceae family. We just covered this family in the last episode, and here we are again. So I apologize for going over it again, but I think it's important for completeness. According to, I don't know, when I choose these herbs, I'm not choosing them. I'm not looking up all the details when I'm first choosing them, as they kind of come out afterwards as I'm researching them. So I had no idea they were both from the same family. So according to Britannica, the Asteraceae family, also called Compositae, is commonly known as the aster, daisy, or composite family of the flowering plant order Asterales. Includes more than 1,620 genera and 23,600 species of herbs, shrubs, and trees distributed throughout the world. It is one of the largest plant families in existence. There are many well-known plants in this family, including many garden ornamentals, weeds, including dandelion, ragweed, and thistle, food crops like lettuce, artichoke, safflower, sunflower, and endive, and as well as several Chinese herbs, which we've covered here. We've covered quite a few Chinese and not Chinese herbs that are part of this family. Members of the family have flower heads composed of many small flowers called florets that are surrounded by bracts, or leaf-like structures. Bell-shaped disc florets form the center of each head. Strap-shaped ray florets extend out like petals from the center and are sometimes reflexed or bent back. Another interesting article agreed with this overview and looked at how this family plays a role in human health including antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial activity, as well as diuretic and wound healing properties. So this is, I have a course that is called Why, Not How Do Herbs Work? And it kind of gets into this idea of flowers and crops grew up with humans and influenced each other. And it's fascinating. It's like, I think it's one of the most interesting courses I've done, and I'm on almost 200 courses at this point. I think that one's one of the most interesting. I would talk about, I would keep this in mind while listening to that course. It's an interesting interplay between them. Okay, so back to Juhua or Chrysanthemum Flower. Remember, we have three major texts that we look at when we look at Chinese herbs. The first one is Bensky and his team, and they say the dosage of this herb is 4.5 to 15 grams a day. Chen and Chen is our second text, and they say 10 to 15 grams with a maximum of 100 grams per day. So you can have a lot of this a day. And Brandon Wiseman also say the dose is 10 to 15 grams per day. Categories, they all say basically the same thing, but in slightly different translations. So let's go over them. Bensky and his team put this herb in the cool, acrid herbs that release the exterior subcategory under the herbs that release the exterior category. Chen Shen say it is in the wind heat releasing herbs subcategory under the category of exterior releasing herbs. And Brandon Wiseman say it is in the cool, acrid, exterior resolving medicinal subcategory under the exterior resolving medicinals category. So they're all saying the same thing, but they may come at it from a slightly different perspective in each of these cases. Bensky and his team say it is sweet, bitter, and slightly cold, and enters the lung and liver. Chen Chen and Brandon Wiseman both add acrid, which is an interesting one because it's in the category of cool, acrid herbs. And so you would think it would be acrid, but Bensky doesn't put acrid in there, but both of our other texts do. Chen Chen says it is cool rather than slightly cold. And frankly, I would have no clue what the difference is between cool and slightly cold. To me, they would be the same thing, but there may be some technical aspects there that I'm not even aware of. So, history, both Bensky and his team and Chen Chen say the original source for this herb is the Shendong Ben Saojing, or Divine Husbandman's classic of the Materia Medica in the 2nd century CE. This comes up very often in our study of Chinese single herbs because it is the first existing book on single herbs in Chinese medicine. And so if an herb is in this book, it is one of the oldest herbs in the Chinese pharmacopoeia. And so very old herb, very important herb in that context. In fact, I just want to say one of the things that doesn't come up anywhere else, but I think is kind of important for me to say. So I went to China in, I want to say 2006, maybe 2008. It must have been 2006 because it was before they hosted the Olympics, which I think was 2008. So maybe it was 2007, right in that area. And one of the things that was fascinating to me is everywhere we went, there were old people drinking tea everywhere. And so we go to a park and they'd have these teacups and you can see and I could see what they were drinking to a certain extent because I knew my Chinese herbs. And what they were drinking more often than not was Juhua, was chrysanthemum flowers. That was a big thing with lychee. And we'll talk about lychee in just a little bit. Those were the two things, and that's what they did. And I asked our tour guide, does everyone drink that? It's like, yes, it's very popular among the elders because it helps the eyes. And so that's the reason why they were drinking it. And of course, we're going to find that this herb really helps the eyes. So I don't know if it's appropriate in the history or not, but I wanted to kind of get that context. Like, this is super popular in China today to drink chrysanthemum tea. So when you're looking at 10 to 15 grams a day, that's probably what they're getting from the tea. But up to 100 grams, according to Chen Chen, that's good too. You're not going to get to that dose. So it's almost like a food substance. From what I could see, it was the most popular tea around. I'm sure there are other teas that may be more or less popular, but what I saw when I was traveling through China was this was the tea. So let's talk about herbs that release the category. We have now discussed this category and subcategory of herbs several times during our adventures examining Chinese herbs, and we will repeat that information here again. I've been trying to, I'll be honest with you, this year I was trying to get through the release the exterior stuff. So I was trying not to overwhelm, but there's been a lot of it this year because it's the first category we covered and I haven't really gone through an entire category yet. I still won't be towards the end of the year, but we'll get close to it. So that's sort of my goal, is to get through a category. I think next year I'll mix it up a little bit more. So according to Bensky and his team, exterior releasing herbs are those that release disorders lodged in the very superficial levels of the body. When external pathogenic factors, including wind heat, wind cold, wind dampness, and summer heat, invade the body, they first attack its superficial exterior aspects. Symptoms associated with the exterior then appear: chills, fever, headache, stiff neck, and general muscle aches. Sometimes sweating will appear, which resolves the condition, in which case no treatment is necessary. At other times, however, there will be an absence of sweating, or even though there is sweating, it is not accompanied by any change in the condition. At this juncture, herbs that release the exterior are used. Most exterior releasing herbs are diaphoretics. That is, they release or expel the external pathogenic influences through sweating. There's a saying in Chinese medicine: when the disease is in the skin, sweating will bring it out. When a disease progresses slightly further into the body, it is said to lodge in the muscle layer. The clinical presentation then includes fever, general body aches, and profuse sweating. At this stage, especially when the patient has sweated without any beneficial change in their condition, it is appropriate to use the subset of herbs that release the muscle layer. The most prominent member of this group is Cinnamomum granulus guajir, which is cinnamon twig. Some of the herbs that release the exterior have additional functions: stopping coughs and wheezing, controlling pain or spasms, and preventing rashes such as measles. So that's just a general overview of herbs that release the exterior. Let's talk about cool acrid herbs that release the exterior. So this is the subcategory. Bensky et al. Continues to discuss the subcategory of cool acrid herbs that release the exterior. And it's just really short. Cool acrid herbs are used for treating wind heat patterns with such symptoms as relatively severe fever with mild chills and sore throat. Some of these substances are also effective in preventing rashes or treating eye problems due to wind heat. Keep that in mind because that's where we're going with our herb today. It's very helpful for eye problems. So what is good quality Zhuhua? Bensky and his team say good quality consists of unfragmented, fresh flower heads, yellowish white in color, with just a few stalks and leaves and a fresh aroma. The Chinese Medicinal Identification and Illustrated Approach, which is a great book on quality, says Zhuhua's involucre has a grass-like texture with membranous edges. I have never seen this word before, involucre. So I had to look it up, and it basically means one or more whorls of bracts. Remember, bracts are little leaflets situated below and close to a flower cluster, or fruit. And then, of course, bracts, we've already talked about, is a modified leaf or scale, typically small with a flower or flower cluster in its axil. I'm not going into axil. These are all botanical terms in general, so kind of keep that in mind. So it's Zhuhua's involucre, has a grass-like texture with membranous edges. It has a texture that is light in substance, soft and moist, becomes loose and brittle after drying. Has a clear, fresh aroma and a sweet, slightly bitter taste. And superior medicinal material consists of flowers that are intact with a fresh color, clear, fresh aroma, and few stems. So that is good quality Zhuhua. So let's talk about its Chinese medical actions. According to Bensky and their team, Zhuhua disperses wind and clears heat for wind heat patterns, either from a common cold or warm pathogen disease with fever and headache. It calms the liver and clears the eyes for red, swollen, dry, and or painful eyes due to either wind heat in the liver channel or ascendant liver yang. Also used for spots in front of the eyes, blurry vision, or dizziness due to liver and kidney yin deficiency. This is one of our major eye herbs, just in general, and often we'll bring other herbs to the eyes as well. So this is, when you think eyes, this is one of the herbs that one of the first herbs we're going to be thinking about. Another action is it calms liver and extinguishes wind for such symptoms as dizziness, headache, and deafness due to ascendant liver yang. And finally, it resolves toxicity for toxic sores and swellings. Chen say it dispels wind heat. Wind heat Juhua Flos chrysanthemi is commonly used to dispel wind heat and treat early stage febrile disorders and wind heat syndromes characterized by headache, fever, red and painful eyes, dizziness, dry mouth and throat, and a yellow tongue coat. It clears the liver and benefits the eyes. Juhua is one of the most commonly used herbs in treatment of eye disorders, which I just mentioned. It treats eye disorders caused by wind heat attacking the liver channel or liver fire rising with symptoms such as redness, swelling, and pain in the eyes, superficial visual obstruction, and increased production of tears on exposure to wind. It treats blurred vision and dizziness from liver and kidney yin deficiencies. It is, however, contraindicated if the diagnosis is yang deficiency or deficiency and cold. Continuing with Chen, they say it calms liver yang. In hypertension, Juhua enters the liver channel and calms rising liver yang. It's commonly used to treat hypertension, dizziness, vertigo, and swelling and pain in the head associated with liver yang rising. And finally, Chen say it clears heat and eliminates toxins, including in dermatological disorders. Juhua clears heat and eliminates toxins from the exterior of the body and treats various dermatological disorders with abscesses and ulcerations. The Chinese medicinal identification illustrated approach says it clears heat and disperses wind, calms the liver, and brightens the eyes. Brandon Wiseman say it disperses wind heat, clears the liver and drains fire, brightens the eyes, calms liver yang, and clears heat and resolves toxin. So, all of our books so far are very much saying very similar things, which is good. Sometimes they differ a little bit, but here it's pretty straight. And finally, we have the Divine Farmers Materia Medica. Remember, Divine Farmers Materia Medica is the first of all these books. Usually is a little bit different and often includes a little bit of magic. I don't think we see that here necessarily, but it's interesting. It mainly, Juhua Flos Chrysanthemi morifoliae is bitter and balanced. It mainly treats head wind, head dizziness, and head swelling and pain with the eyes, as if they were fit to burst from their sockets, tearing, dead skin and muscles, aversion to wind, and damp impediment. Protracted taking may disinhibit the blood and qi, make the body light, slow aging, and prolong life. So it is considered one of the things that's kind of unique to the Divine Farmers Materia Medica is that it will classify herbs as into superior, middle, and inferior qualities, types of herbs. This is a superior herb, which means you can take it every day and it has benefit. And basically, this is a life-prolonging herb. It's a good herb to have every day, which may be one of the reasons why I saw so many older Chinese people drinking this when I was in China. Not only for the eyes, but also for prolonging life. Preparations. Let's talk about some preparations. Bensky and their team describe several forms of preparations. There are two main types of chrysanthemum flower, white and yellow. Historically, although their actions are similar, each has a bias, so usually one or the other is specified. If only Juhua is written in a prescription, it will be filled with the white variety. White chrysanthemum flower, Bai Juhua, pale yellow, almost white petals. Because its flavor is sweeter, it is sometimes called sweet chrysanthemum flower or Ganjuhua, or simply sweet chrysanthemum Ganju. Traditionally, this variety is said to be stronger, calming the liver and clearing the eyes, while still able to dispel wind and clear heat. Yellow chrysanthemum flower, Huangjuhua. Compared to the white variety, the yellow is more bitter and is better for dispelling wind heat, draining fire, and resolving toxicity. Because the best quality comes from the vicinity of Hangzhou, it is sometimes referred to as Hangzhou chrysanthemum flower or Huangjuhua. We have sweet chrysanthemum flower, Ganjuhua. There's been a long controversy about the meaning of this appellation, which has never been satisfactorily resolved. To some, all medicinal chrysanthemum flowers are considered sweet, relative to the unusable varieties called bitter chrysanthemum flower of Kujuhua. To others, however, the sweet chrysanthemum flower refers to the light, mild, sweet-flavored white chrysanthemum flower of Baijuhua, which we just mentioned. Also, others believe it refers to Chrysanthemi Flos, or Yejuhua, which is a different species altogether. And wild chrysanthemum flower, Yejuhua, refers to Chrysanthemi Flos, Yejuhua, which is a different species of chrysanthemum. There we go, I just mentioned that. Dry fried chrysanthemum flowers are Chaojuhua. This is dry fried until slightly scorched. This method of preparation moderates its acrid choline properties. It is generally used to calm the liver and clear the eyes when the spleen and stomach are weak. Charred chrysanthemum flower, Juhua Tan, is dry fried until thoroughly scorched but not deformed, then quickly sprinkled with water to cool it and prevent it from burning. Strongly scorching Chrysanthemi Flos Juhua causes it to enter the blood, where it searches out wind, and it then settles the wind and quiets the blood. So that is Juhua Tan, or charred chrysanthemum preparation. Chen Chen also discusses three types of Juhua, which we've mostly mentioned, but we'll go over it again. Yejuhua, wild chrysanthemum flower, is strongest in clearing heat, eliminating toxins, and treating sore throat, sores, and carbuncles, and swollen, painful eyes. Huangjuhua, yellow chrysanthemum flower, is the strongest in dispelling wind heat, and Baijuhua, white chrysanthemum flower, is strongest in sedating liver fire, brightening the eyes, and treating redness and pain in the eyes. And you can see here, when we go over all three of these, which we did under Bensky as well, that what I said earlier is we usually think about this as one of the major eye herbs. And Baijuhua, or white chrysanthemum flower, is sort of the default form of this Juhua, and that's the one that's strongest for the eyes. And so I think that all kind of fits in with what we've been talking about this herb. Let's talk about some Western uses of this herb. The species that are commonly used in Chinese medicine, called Juhua or its variations, appear to be exclusively Chinese traditional herbs. The PDR for herbal medicines does not mention this herb. It does have an entry on WebMD, and it basically says it is a Chinese herb. So very difficult to do that. Having said that, chrysanthemum tea, is something that I think is available and is made and drunk in the Western world, even if we don't think of it so much in terms of the herbal medicine side of things, but it's quite effective for that. Bensky and his team, as usual, has an excellent commentary on this herb. Chrysanthemi Flos Juhua is cooling, aromatic, light, and slightly cold and bitter in taste, within which is a sweet flavor. It can rise to disperse wind heat in the lungs, cool and drain liver channel heat, while also benefiting the liver yin and blood to calm and direct liver and gallbladder fire downward. It also cools heat and clears toxins. Rectification of the meaning of Materia Medica, or the Ben Sao Zheng Yi, written in 1914, notes that all flowers lift, dissipate, and drain. Only Juhua contains, accepts, and directs downward to calm liver fire, extinguish internal wind, and thus suppress the transverse rebellion of wood qi accosting the earth. So that's referring to the five elements and the controlling cycles. Ever since the earliest Materia Medica text, the Divine Husbandman's Classic of the Materia Medica, the beneficial effects of long-term consumption of Juhua have been recognized. Taken over a long time, it says, it will facilitate the qi and blood, lighten the body, and prevent aging. It has long been a favorite of Taoists and poets alike. The famous painter Zheng Banqiao, one of the 8 eccentrics of 18th century Yangzhou, exclaimed in a poem, "Tasting chrysanthemum tea of old, this flower of longevity, a man of 80 years picks and sips assiduous, teaching his frosty beard to turn raven black." That's a cool little poem. The key is persistence, as emphasized by many writers. Chen Duo, for example, observed, "Sweet chrysanthemum flower is light and clear in flavor and nature, and its effect is particularly leisurely. It must be taken over a long time before it starts to take effect. One cannot simply take more to try for earlier results." That's interesting. That's the U.S., the American way of little's good, more is better. Not necessarily in this case. And that's from the thoroughly revised Materia Medica, the Bensao Song Xin, written in 1751. Now that was Chen Shizhou. What we're about to do is from the thoroughly revised Materia Medica, written in 1751, elaborates on this herb's properties. Sweet chrysanthemum flower is sweet, bitter, and slightly cold. Thoroughly imbued with the qi of the 4 seasons, it sprouts in winter, produces leaves in spring, blossoms in summer, and reaches full flower in autumn. In its fullness, it embraces the frost and succumbs to the essence of metal and water. Thus, it is able to benefit the 2 organs, the lungs and kidneys. This controls heart fire and calms liver wood. With wood calmed, the wind is extinguished. When fire is directed downward, heat is eliminated. Thus, it can nourish the eyes and the blood, and thereby expel superficial visual obstructions. If it is combined with lychee fructus or gochiza, that's what I was talking about in that tea, and a honey pill, and taken for an extended period, there will never be any eye problems. It also treats lacrimation or tearing and dizziness. It dispels damp, painful obstruction, and wandering wind. Sipped as tea, drunk in wine, or placed in a pillow, all ways are effective. In fact, so that's that quote. In fact, certain herbs can come back to the commentary. In fact, certain herbs can be added to chrysanthemum flower made as a tea to treat or prevent a number of illnesses. For example, lychee fructus, gochiza, adds a very pleasant taste and an attractive color to the tea, with the additional benefit of strongly enhancing the eye-soothing action of Juhua. Again, that's the combination I saw everywhere. It is an ideal everyday drink for those whose work strains the eyes. With the addition of Morifolium Sangye to the tea, Juhua can prevent wind heat attacks or wind heat affecting the eyes. With Sterculiae, Lycnophoria, semen, Pangdaiha, the voice and throat are soothed and bowel regularity is maintained. Pangdaiha is very good for the throat. Cutaji fructus shanja, which we just covered a couple episodes ago, and Cassia semen jue mingza in Juhua tea is beneficial for hypertension or high cholesterol. And with Chrysanthemi Flos, Jinyan Hua, the toxicity resolving effect of Juhua is emphasized, while the tea still tastes quite pleasant. The root, sprout, and leaf can also be used as medicine to dispel wind, cool heat, and resolve toxicity, but their quality and effect is far less potent than the flower. Instead, they are often powdered and applied externally for sores and boils. And that is our commentary. Let's step into comparisons. How does this herb compare with other herbs? So Bensky compares this herb to Morifolium Sangye. It's the only comparison that Bensky and his team do. The formula mulberry leaf and chrysanthemum decoction, or Sangju Yin, from Systematic Differentiation of Warm Pathogenic Diseases, or Wenbing Tiaobian, written in 1798, uses a combination of Morifolium Sanguae and Juhua as its foundation. This is explained by the book's author, Wu Ju-tong. And here's a quote from them. Mulberry obtains the essence of the stars Sagittarius and Scorpio, i.e. autumn, which delight in wind. The chi of wind communicates with the liver, and thus Morifolium Sanguae excels at calming liver wind. Spring commands the liver and is expressed as wind. This is the time that wood flourishes and metal weakens. Thus, to suppress excess, Morifolium Sanguae is aromatic and has fine hairs with multiple transverse veins, enabling it to mobilize the collaterals of the lung and to disseminate the lung qi. Juhua flowers late in the season with a heady aroma and sweet flavor that can tonify the two organs of metal and water. Thus, it tonifies that which is insufficient. Continuing, Morifolium Sanguae, however, is stronger at spreading and dispersing than is Juhua, and can also moisten the lungs and stop coughs, cool the blood, and stops bleeding. Juhua, by contrast, is stronger at calming the liver and brightening the eyes. In addition, its relatively mild ability to resolve toxicity allows it to be used for the toxic swellings of boils and furuncles. So that was a comparison with Sanguae. Let's talk about some combinations. Bensky and his team discussed several combinations of this herb with others. With Menthe Haplocallisis herba, or boha, this is field mint. Both are wind heat dispersing herbs. Juhua, which is sweet, bitter, and slightly cold, has a superior wind expelling and heat cooling effect. Menthe Haplocallisis herba, boha, is light, cooling, and dispersing, and ideal for releasing pathogenic wind heat, cooling heat, and soothing the throat. Combined, the wind heat dissipating effect is greatly enhanced, especially around the head and eyes. The pear is commonly used for the early stages of exterior wind heat, causing fever, chills, headache, dizziness, sore eyes, and sore throat. Yellow Chrysanthemi Flos, Huang Juhua, is the variety to use for this purpose. Juhua and Menthe Haplocallisis herba boha both enter the liver channel and both cool the liver. But Juhua also nourishes the liver, while Menthe Haplocallisis herba boha moves the liver qi. The combination is therefore ideal for liver qi blockage turning to fire blazing upward, with such symptoms as blurry vision, dizziness, headache, and red swollen eyes. For this purpose, white Chrysanthemi Flos by Juhua is the better variety. So that's one combination with boha. With Sapashnakove radix, or fong fung. Sapashnakove radix fong fung is acrid, sweet, and warm. Its specialty is dispelling wind, particularly wind cold. Juhua is sweet, bitter, and slightly cold. And although it is a wind heat dispersing herb, its wind expelling action is much weaker than its heat cooling action. With Sapashnakove radix fong fung as a partner, the ability of Juhua to expel wind is enhanced, while the warmth of Sapashnakove radix fong fung is cooled by Juhua. Because of this mutual enhancement and control, this is a good combination for treating wind heat, irritating the exterior, with such symptoms as slight chills and mild fever, headache, and itchy eyes. So with Cicada parasticum, or chan tui, this is moltings of cicadas. Cicada parasticum chan tui is sweet and cold, brightens the eyes, and eliminates superficial visual obstructions. Juhua not only expels wind and disperses heat, it is also excellent for cooling the liver and improving the vision. Together, they are often used for accumulation of wind heat, causing superficial visual obstructions. Today, the combination is most often used for red, watery eyes and superficial visual obstructions associated either with liver channel wind heat or residual heat toxin remaining from measles or other rashes. The combination of these two herbs has been known as cicada and chrysanthemum powder at Chanju San. This combination can also be used for superficial visual obstructions following trauma to the eye. Now we get into that combination I mentioned up front with the teas. So with lychee fructus gochidza. Lychee fructus gochidza. Lychee fructus gochidza is sweet and neutral, nourishing and tonifying the liver and kidneys, increasing the essence and thereby brightening the eyes. Zhuhua is sweet, bitter, and cool, and is basically a wind-expelling, cooling, and toxin-relieving herb, which also has liver-cooling and vision-improving properties. Rectification of the meaning of Materia Medica notes, we mentioned this earlier, it was written in 1914. They note, only Zhuhua, cooling, bitter, draining, and its ability to direct downward can draw the deficient but rising yang back to its base below. This is why it is an important herb for eye diseases. In the treatment of liver and kidney deficiency, where the essence and blood are unable to rise and nourish the eyes, for liver yang or liver wind rising, the tonifying effects of lychee fructus gochidza supplements the root, while the liver cooling and liver pacifying actions of Zhuhua treat the branch. When we say treat the branch, that's opposed to the root. So branches are signs and symptoms, the root is the cause. And that's our combinations today. Let's talk about the contents that are in Zhuhua. According to Bensky et al., the contents of this herb include volatile oils, including chrysanthemum, flavonoids, sugars, and amino acids. Chen discussed similar constituents. Essential oils, 0.2 to 0.85%, include bornyl acetate, chrysanthemum, and camphor, and flavone, which include luteolin, apigenin, and quercetin, as well as chrysanthemum. So those are the flavones. And then it also includes chrysanthemum A and B, chlorocrimorin, and chrysandiol. So whenever you have constituents that have like names of the flower, that's usually where they come from, where they're first discovered, possibly where they're only found. So there's a lot of those here that we just discussed. The science. So according to Chen, the pharmacological effects of Zhuhua include being vasodilating and antibiotic. They also discuss a couple of clinical studies with positive results. One study of 164 patients with coronary artery disease showed symptom and ECG improvement. So ECG means the electrical system of the heart. Electrocardiogram. A combination of Zhuhua, Jinyanhua, Flosliniserae, Sanye, Folium More, and Shanja, Fructus crataeji, showed improvement of hypertension in 46 patients. So again, that's just barely statistically valid, but that's better than none, than not, at least showing some effects in it, potentially some effects in with the use for hypertension. A review article discussed various activities of Zhuhua, including antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-adipogenic, which means it's against forming fat, antioxidant, and hepato, liver, cardio, heart, and nerves protective. So it helps the liver, heart, and nerves. These are based on in vitro and in vivo research, and at least in this review does not appear to be based on clinical studies. So in vitro means in glass, which means basically in the laboratory. In vivo means in life, and that usually means animals. It doesn't mean, it's not a clinical, it's usually mice, rats, and it could be rabbits, dogs, depends, but usually mice and rats. So not necessarily clinical, which means it was in humans. Let's talk about some drug-herb interactions. A literature search does not show any cytochrome P450 or P-glycoprotein interactions. One study actually screened for cytochrome P450 interactions with Zhuhua and found no significant interactions at all. The American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook puts this herb in interaction class A herbs for which no clinically relevant interactions are expected. Now, this makes sense. I mean, think about it. First of all, what I just said is this is used quite frequently in China in the elderly population. The elderly population are usually the ones that are on drugs, or at least more so they're on drugs. So this, and they're drinking it as a tea, which basically makes it a food substance. So they're taking large quantities, they're on drugs, and nothing's really coming up. So it seems to be pretty darn safe, at least in terms of drug-herb interactions. And we'll find out if there are any concerns right now on anything else involving this herb. So Bensky and his team note several concerns with Juhua. Under the heading of cautions and contraindications, they say do not use large dosage in patients with qi deficiency, stomach cold, or diarrhea. Under the heading of traditional contraindications, they say bitter, cold herbs do not suit those with stomach problems. True Chrysanthemi Flos, Juhua, extends life, where Chrysanthemi Flos, Ye Juhua, drains a person. Thus, Zhu Danxi, who is a very famous Chinese medical doctor, said that imbibing Chrysanthemi Flos, Ye Juhua, greatly injures the stomach qi. And this came from Harm and Benefit in Materia Medica, the Ben Sao Hai Li by Ong Huan, written in 1893. So that seems like a long time ago, but that's relatively recent Chinese medicine, 1893. Bensky also, under the heading of toxicity, say, allergic reactions have been reported following skin contact with the herb. The symptoms include pruritus or itching, a burning sensation, edema, and erosions. Mild allergic skin reactions, pruritus and erythema, which is redness, so itching and redness, may also appear following ingestion of the herb. Chen Qian also has some cautions, contraindications about this herb. Since Juhua is cool, it should be used with caution in patients with qi deficiency or cold in the stomach, characterized by diarrhea, lack of appetite, or decreased food intake. Juhua is contraindicated for use in the presence of yang deficiency or deficiency and cold. Brandon Wiseman did not have any concerns about this herb in general. The American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook, which it's a great resource for safety of herbs, puts this herb in safety class 1, their highest class, herbs that can be safely consumed when used appropriately. So no major concerns there at this point. So there we go, summary. Today we looked at another single Chinese herb, Juhua, Chrysanthemi Flos, or Chrysanthemum Flower, from the cool acrid herbs that release the exterior subcategory. Another tasty and useful herb to help treat colds and eye issues. As usual, we explored all the intricacies of this herb as well as an explanation of its category. And that was another terrific exploration of a very helpful and important herb. So here's my bottom line in this. Until I was doing this, I had forgotten how much chrysanthemum I had seen being imbibed when I went to China. And it was chrysanthemum and that lychee, Kochidza, that we said earlier. And I'm at the time, I mean, this is, almost 20 years ago, a little less than 20 years ago. I was hale and hearty. I'm now older. And I'm starting to have issues with my eyesight, and having a little bit extra essence and stuff might be there. I drink every day. I drink my oolong tea. This is what I drink all day long. I don't replenish it, so I put leaves in the morning, and then I just put water throughout the day. So I'd like to say that by the nighttime, I'm having tea flavored water, but in the morning I get a little bit hit of caffeine to help me get going. But I don't think I need a ton of caffeine personally. I'm not a huge caffeine person. And now that I'm reading this and thinking about this with chrysanthemum and lychee, this to me seems like a fantastic thing for me to think about adding into my regimen as a longevity herbal formula rather than the oolong. I think of oolong as being longevity as well. And I don't know if that means some days I'll do chrysanthemum and lychee, and some days I'll do oolong, or I'll switch. Maybe I'll have oolong in the morning and then I'll switch over to Flos chrysanthemi. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do yet, but after doing this today, I'm convinced that it can be helpful to have this and sort of a long-term approach going forward. I've been really happy with my oolong. but I think I'm going to try and find some good quality chrysanthemum. I'm about to place an herbal order, so that shouldn't be a hard thing for me to do. And I'm searching in this as well and seeing if it helps some of my things. Some of my eyes aren't bad. I had LASIK in my late 20s, and it's done very well by me. But I am starting to need readers, and even with readers, things are starting to become a little bit more difficult to see. So maybe having some of this will be helpful, not to mention all the other longevity aspects of it. Not just the longevity aspects. I might throw in some fructus crotagii in it. It can help some of my hyperlipidemia, which I don't have anymore. It's well controlled at this point, but certainly something that is a concern. So there's definitely some usefulness to this, and some of them I'm seriously going to think about adding into my lifestyle. So it's good herb. It's a really good herb. All right. In our next episode, we will be exploring another Chinese herbal formula, Xiaoqing Long Tang, or minor blue-green dragon decoction. One of my favorite names for a formula, minor blue-green dragon. Anything with dragon. Gotta love anything with dragon decoction. This formula is in the subcategory of formulas that release exterior when cold and is especially good at treating copious mucus. We're going to find out as we do our usual deep dive into this formula and find out if there is any evidence or concerns. And as usual, we will be adding something a little different. And I promise you that because I didn't do something a little bit different today. So I'm definitely going to do something next time around. It's going to be another scintillating discussion of herbs, so please join us in 2 weeks. And I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. If you like this podcast, we'd be so appreciative if you did us a big favor. Either subscribe in your favorite podcast app, maybe give us 5 stars if you could. We would love that very much. It would help us immensely. Don't forget our amazing continuing education deal at www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org/CEUS1. That's Integrative Medicine Council, COUNCIL.org/CEUS1. And you can always get in touch with me at Dr. Greg at spurbsherbs.com. That's SPERDSHERBS.com, or at our website, www.spurbsherbs.com. And as usual, we have our bibliography. Thank you very much.